The History of Birth Control by Kate Silver. Prior to 3000 BCE, most people practiced abstinence or the pull-out method in order to prevent unwanted pregnancies. By 3000 BCE, ancient societies such as Crete and Egypt began developing the first types of condoms using animal and fish bladders or intestines. King Minos of Crete is allegedly the first person to use an animal organ as a protective barrier during sex. Circa 1850 BCE, Egyptian women were combining crocodile dung, honey, and fermented dough as a physical barrier to prevent sperm from reaching the egg and also as a homemade spermicide. While this was not completely ineffective, I would not recommend this method. Between 1619 and 1870, African women would create their own concoctions and homemade herbal medicines to prevent pregnancy, especially via coercion during the slave trade era. In 1855, during the Industrial Revolution, Charles Goodyear, an American inventor, discovered the rubber vulcanization process, which allowed rubber to become more malleable, durable, and stretchy. This is the same Charles Goodyear you can probably thank for the tires on your car. In 1873, Congress passed the Comstock Act. This made it illegal to send contraceptives, sex toys, and other potentially obscene artifacts through the mail. The bill was led by Anthony Comstock, who eventually became a higher-up in the U.S. Postal Service. In the early 1900s, the United States government, with the first state being Indiana, began introducing forced sterilization policies to prevent people deemed unfit from reproducing. In 1914, a public health nurse named Margaret Sanger began her decades-long fight to making contraceptives legal and available for American women. 2 years later, she opened the first birth control clinic in the United States in Brooklyn, New York, and this would eventually transform into the Planned Parenthood we know today. However, she was arrested for her efforts and eventually went on to write the Birth Control Review to educate people about contraceptives. By 1938, the diaphragm, also known as the womb veil, became the most popular birth control method for American women. The diaphragm is inserted into the vagina and acts as a barrier covering the cervix and blocking sperm from entering the uterus. In 1953, a massive breakthrough was made when biologists Gregory Pincus and John Rock developed the first birth control pill. This project was funded by a philanthropist named Catherine McCormick and cost over $2 million. However, this project was extremely controversial because the scientists tested on male and female patients at a psychiatric hospital and also on impoverished women living in Puerto Rico. In 1960, the first hormonal contraceptive pill, which used progesterone and estrogen, was approved by the United States Food and Drug Administration. In 1968, the FDA approved the first intrauterine device, also known as an IUD. The fallout from the forced sterilization laws from the early 1900s led to the creation of the Committee to End Sterilization Abuse. These archaic policies led to a drop in birth rate for women of color. The early 90s introduced long-acting reversible contraception options for women, such as Norplant, which lasted 5 years and was inserted into the arm, and the Depo shot, which lasts 3 months and is injected into the body. All of these options were FDA approved. In 1999, the FDA approved the first emergency contraceptives. These pills contain levonorgestrel, which prevents ovulation and therefore decreases the chances of pregnancy after unprotected sex. Prevan and Plan B were the first of these kinds of pills, and they began selling over-the-counter in 2006. The 21st century brought about a new era of birth control with increased availability, efficacy, and options for women to choose from. The FDA approved a new levonorgestrel-releasing IUD, the vaginal ring, which prevents the ovaries from releasing eggs and ovulating, also called the NuvaRing, and the hormonal patch, called OrthoEvra, which releases estrogen and progestin into the body, among other options. Most recently, in 2022, the Supreme Court in Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization ruled that the Constitution does not protect a woman's right to abortion. This landmark court ruling overturned Roe v. Wade from 1973 and Planned Parenthood v. Casey from 1992, dismantling 50 years of abortion protection for women. Between 3000 BCE and 2024, birth rates have dramatically dropped thanks to birth control access. What hasn't changed in this time period is that birth control will always be a fundamental right to women, and we must ensure it remains that way for future generations to come.